Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And as a way of introducing our subject tonight, here's this.
Hall of Famer, catcher, Yogi Berra.
That's right, I have not been looking forward to this podcast. This was a guy I watched play in the early 60s when I used to go out to Comiskey Park and see the Yankees play the White Sox. This was a guy I met in the early 70s when he was managing the Mets. This is a guy I've quoted many times in things I've written. Lawrence Peter Berra, aka Yogi, the pride of Montclair, New Jersey, and the pride of Dago Hill in St. Louis, died recently at the age of 90. I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm going to say something that the Yogis didn't say. He was one of the great Americans of the 20th century. Consider this. He was a fixture in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He was a fixture in Bartlett's Quotations, and he was a fixture in American popular culture. I can think of only two other men you can say that about, Babe Ruth and Satchel Paige. Throw on to that Yogi Berra also won a Purple Heart for his service during World War II at the Normandy invasion, and I think I can make my case for one of the great Americans of the 20th century. We'll talk more about it, but before we do, let's just do the brief story of his life, including the statistics from St. Louis, where he grew up, and the St. Louis Baseball Hall of Fame, where he was inducted.
The St. Louis area has produced a number of outstanding baseball players, but none more accomplished than Lawrence Peter Berra. Yogi's father, Pietro, immigrated to America from Italy in 1909. Eventually, his wife and two sons followed. On May 12, 1925, Yogi was welcomed into the family. The Berras were a poor family that lived on Elizabeth Avenue on the Hill in South St. Louis. Yogi was bored with school and quit after the 8th grade. He had odd jobs just so he could play baseball. His father knew nothing about baseball, but Yogi's older brothers convinced him to let Yogi play that American game. He grew up across the street from his boyhood friend Joe Garagiola. At age 15, he and Joe went to a tryout with the Cardinals. They offered to sign Joe for $500. They offered Yogi only $300. He said no. Eventually, the Yankees offered Yogi the $500 and signed him. Into the minor leagues on a Class B team, Yogi reportedly drove in 23 runs in a doubleheader. While playing in the minors, he was drafted and went into the Navy. Yogi was there for the historic Normandy invasion in 1944. After the war, Yogi was back in the minors, but it wasn't long before he found himself in Yankee Stadium wearing the pinstripes at age 22. Yogi hit a home run in his first major league at bat.
Berra swings, and that one's going to leave the ballpark. Well, what do you know? Larry Berra, they call him Yogi, his very first time at the plate in the major leagues against the A's. And what does he do? He hits a home run.
He played 18 seasons with the Yankees and became one of the most celebrated players in the history of that great franchise. He was the American League's MVP 3 times. Yogi was passionate and excelled, despite being told many times that he was too small and couldn't make it. He proved them all wrong. He knew how to win. Check out these numbers. He appeared in 14 World Series and has enough series rings for every finger and thumb, 10. Yogi holds a host of World Series records, most games, at bats, most hits, and he caught the most famous World Series game in history, Don Larson's perfect game in 1956. Yogi was called a bad ball hitter. His philosophy was simple. If he could see it, he could hit it. He was a 15-time All-Star. After his brilliant playing career, he managed both the Yankees and the New York Mets. Yogi was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown in 1972. One of his proudest moments was the opening of the Yogi Berra Museum and Learning Center in New Jersey. Without question, one of the best catchers in the history of baseball. Few athletes can be identified by just one name, but Larry Berra can. Just call him Yogi.
Okay, let's look at Yogi Berra's career and see how he rates in 3 categories: among the greatest catchers of all time, among the greatest Yankees of all time, and among the greatest World Series players of all time. Among the greatest catchers of all time, and by the way, you have to remember that Yogi also played 260 games in the outfield late in his career to save his legs when the Yankees had Elson Howard. But let's just look at him as a catcher. He's unquestionably top 10. He's unquestionably top 5. Is he the best? Well, there are 4 other catchers he'd put in there with him: Johnny Bench, Bill Dickey, Roy Campanella, and Mickey Cochran. I'm going to leave off Ivan Rodriguez because he's still playing, and I'm going to apologize to Carlton Fisk and Gary Carter guys. I can't put Mike Piazza on there, even though his offensive numbers were probably the best of them, because Mike Piazza wasn't a very good defensive catcher. But Yogi was, as were the other 4. Is he the best among those? It's hard to say. you could easily make a case that he was as good a catcher as Johnny Bench, or you'd have to flip-flop them 1-2, but certainly no lower than 5. The best argument for Yogi being the best would be Most Valuable Player Awards. He won 3 times. The only person who's won more than 3 Most Valuable Player Awards is Barry Bonds, and I'll let that go without comment. But at the height of Yogi's career, here were his finishes in the Most Valuable Player voting from 1950 to 1956. 3rd, 1st, 4th, 2nd, 1st, and 2nd. No other catchers come close to being in the top 5 7 years in a row for the Most Valuable Player voting. Where does Yogi rate with the greatest Yankees of all time? Well, he's not the greatest Yankee, but he's clearly in the top 10, and I'd have to put him in the top 7. Ruth at the top, followed by Gehrig, followed by a group of 5. Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Derek Jeter, Mariano Rivera, and Yogi Berra. You might not crack that group in the top 5. But at worst, being the 7th greatest Yankee of all time is nothing to sneeze at. His number with the Yankees tells you what you need to know. Only the greatest get single digits. Jeter 2, Ruth 3, Gehrig 4, DiMaggio 5, Mantle 7, and Berra 8. Where does Yogi rank with great position players in the World Series? Well, again, top 5 or top 6, and maybe the top. First of all, he played more games in the World Series than anybody else. He was in 14 World Series. The Yankees won 10 and only lost 4 that he played in. And 3 of the 4 they lost in 7 games. 10 World Series rings are the top among any player, and he holds a number of offensive records in the World Series. Pitchers from the National League always knew they had to contend with Mickey Mantle, but they feared Yogi Berra, especially because he was such a superb clutch hitter. I'm going to rank Babe Ruth the greatest World Series player of all time and Mickey Mantle second, and Yogi Berra at the top of the next 5, ahead of Reggie Jackson, Lou Brock, Hank Greenberg, and Paul Molitor. And for good measure, Yogi Berra was a key participant in the greatest moment in World Series history.
Larson is ready, gets the sign. 2 strikes, ball 1. Here comes the pitch. Strike 3. A no-hitter, a perfect game for John Larson. Yogi Berra runs out there. He leaps on Larson, and he's swarmed by his teammates. Listen to this crowd roar. The first World Series no-hitter, a perfect performance by John Larson.
To put that into context, here's what Casey Stengel once said about Yogi Berra. Why has our pitching been so great? Our catcher, that's why. He looks cumbersome, but he's quick as a cat. He springs on a bunt like it was another dollar. And nobody's ever going to have to throw a benefit for him neither. Money's the last thing he thinks about at night before he goes to bed. To me, he is a great man. Well, that's Casey Stengel, who's probably the 2nd most quoted guy in baseball history. And I'm not going to dwell too much on Yogi Berra's quotes because everybody was doing that. Here's what he said about everything that he said or didn't say.
You know, a lot of people try to say Yogiism. I don't even know I say it myself. I really don't. They just come out. I don't know I say them. The best one, I think, too, is that when you come to the fork in the road, take it. And we have. I go at Edgemont Road in Montclair. If you go to the fork, you go on Highland Avenue, where I live. Either one take you on Highland Avenue. That's how I got that.
Rather than give you all those quotes that he supposedly said or he did say, I'll just tell you the one that I like the most. One of his teammates supposedly asked him one time, "What time is it?" And he said, "You mean now?" But I'll move on from his quotes. Talk about his military service. Here he talks about landing at Normandy Beach on D-Day.
You know, we went in a V shape, going in, and then we get a command from the lead boat, spread out. We maybe go about 40, 50 yards apart. And we covered the island. We went in before the Army went in. And we stayed off about 300 or 400 yards off the beach. And we fired the rockets in. If one guy, the lead boat, always fired the rocket. If it hit on the beach, everybody lets loose. And then we just hang around there in case they ran into any resistance. You know, we knew where to throw some more rockets. It's funny. I don't know why it wasn't funny, because I was looking out. My officer told me, "Better get your head down here if you want to get blown off." But I just wanted to look at everything.
And he was also a popular culture icon, in part because of the great commercials he did. I'm going to play 3 of them here. Of course, the one he's most well known for, he made the Aflac Company a lot of money by talking with Gilbert Gottfried, that duck, in the Aflac commercials in the barbershop.
Not too close. What do you think? I got that insurance?
What insurance is that, Yogi?
The one you really need to have. If you don't have it, that's why you need it.
Need what?
Well, if you get hurt and miss work, it won't hurt to miss work. And they give you cash, which is just as good as money.
Aflac. Ask about it at work.
So in many younger people's minds, Yogi's associated with a duck. Here's an older Yogi tie-in with Ducky Medwick.
Growing up, Yogi's favorite team was the St. Louis Cardinals, and his favorite player was their star outfielder, Joe Ducky Medwick.
I liked him because he used to be my paper customer. You know, them days, papers were only 3 cents then. And he used to buy the morning paper from, coming home from the games, and he gave me a nickel. And he said, keep the 2 cents. I said, boy, he's great. That's a big tip.
A couple other Yogi commercials. Here's one he did with James Daly for Camel. James Daly, by the way, is father of Tyne Daly, and he was the guy who did that great turn in the classic Twilight Zone episode, A Stop at Willoughby.
I'm up here in the press box watching a great ball player. It's New York Yankee catcher Yogi Berra, the only active American leaguer to win the Most Valuable Player award 3 times. One question I've always wanted to ask you. You talk to the batters a lot, Yogi. What do you say to them?
Try to help him, Jim.
Help them? The guys you want to beat?
Sure, I tell him, watch out for the pitcher. He's a little wild, or it's hard to see the ball because of the white shirt. Helpful things, Jim.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yogi, what's your call on camels?
That's easy. Camels taste good and smoke now.
Thanks, Yogi. See you behind the plate.
He really did talk to the batters. And here's my favorite commercial, where he's talking with a cat about cat food. See if you know who the voice of the cat is.
Champ, you're in great shape.
Yogi, I like to keep fit, work out every day, gym, road work.
What do you eat to keep yourself going?
I always eat Puss in Boots, fish flavor or meat flavor. And yo, Puss in Boots is a complete diet. Vitamins, proteins, everything us athletes need to keep in shape.
After all, who knows more about cats than Puss in Boots?
Give up? The cat was Whitey Ford. Boy, did those guys destroy the White Sox a number of times. Well, the final point I want to make about Yogi Berra is how underestimated he was. You know, when he was back on Dago Hill in St. Louis, his neighbor was Joe Garagiola. And at the time, the Cardinals scouting staff had the best front office man in baseball, Branch Rickey. And he saw Garagiola and he saw 5'7" Yogi Berra, and he decided to offer Garagiola more money. He just didn't think Yogi was a ball player. Although there's a school of thought that said Branch Rickey knew he was moving on to the Dodgers and he was attempting to hide Yogi Berra and get him when he was a Dodger, but it didn't work out. The point is they didn't think Yogi could play, and he turned out to be one of the greatest players of all time. Garagiola, on the other hand, was a journeyman ball player who became much more famous as a television pitchman for baseball, and Bill Veeck had a great line about him. Veeck said, "You say Yogi at a banquet, and everybody automatically laughs. Something Joe Garagiola discovered to his profit many years ago." My son, by the way, who's an avid baseball fan, doesn't even know who Joe Garagiola is. And they also thought Yogi was stupid. But as he explained in that Fork in the Road quote, there was always a method to his madness. There was a sense in the nonsense that he talked. Howard Cosell once said of him, "His major contribution to society is a guttural illiteracy." And all that proved was that Howard Cosell wasn't as smart as he thought he was, and Yogi Berra was much smarter. Even George Steinbrenner, who feuded with Yogi for many years, realized he was nobody's fool. Remember, Yogi played catcher, the hardest position on the field to play. But in the final analysis, I loved most what Casey Stengel said about Yogi. He said, "They say he's funny. Well, he has a lovely wife and family, a beautiful home, money in the bank, and he plays golf with millionaires. What's funny about that?" And I'll tell you from my own personal experience, Yogi was a very nice person. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps. Sid saw Yogi play a lot too back in the old days at Comiskey Park when the Yankees would pull in for a 4-game series on Friday nights against the White Sox. Yanks would usually take 3 out of 4, and Yogi would have something to do with it. Well, we talked about the things that Yogi said and that he didn't say, but one of the things he did say, and it was during the 1973 pennant race when he was managing the Mets, was this.
It ain't over till it's over.
Well, Yogi, we're really going to miss you. You made baseball fun for a lot of us. There'll never be another one like you. And so is our tribute song tonight. This is what we're going to play for Yogi.
Setting suns before they fall, echo to you, that's all, that's all. You